En una tarde luminosa en Viña del Mar, haciendo una antesala a la conferencia que va a dar John Amodeo hoy día en la tarde, invitado por el Centro de Alumnos de la Escuela de Psicología. John es un experto en focusing y la relación que tiene el focusing con las relaciones de pareja. Un gran terapeuta, y vamos a conversar hoy día en la tarde sobre diferentes temas que tengan que ver con la relación de pareja. Well, John, welcome to this country and to this conversation.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's so good for us to have you here.
I love being here.
So I would like to know first, what is the relationship between focusing and couple therapist?
Well, first let me say that there's a lot of anguish, there's a lot of pain in people's hearts because they're missing the connections that they really need to be happy and fulfilled. You know, and also I've traveled a lot around the world. I see in all societies people suffering, people feeling disconnected. I think there's an epidemic of depression in people's lives because of the disconnection, because of the isolation from ourselves and from each other. Often we feel it as a disconnection from other people. People are very afraid to express themselves honestly. They're ashamed of their authentic feelings, of what they authentically long for in their heart. People are very reluctant to share themselves.
Mm-hmm. How does it come? Why people are so much not in touch with their feeling? What do you think about that?
Yeah. A couple of thoughts come to mind. I think oftentimes the way we grow up in our society, children often grow up with a lot of criticism, a lot of shame, a lot of messages that we're not okay as we are. We have to change ourselves. We have to be somebody who we're really not. We twist ourselves into a pretzel to please other people, to satisfy other people, and we lose touch with something precious within ourselves. You know, it's better if people grow up with, all children need guidance, of course, but it's important to convey to children that they're okay as they are. We love them as they are, we accept them, we understand them. So I think in our society we often shame people. We make them feel like a failure, like they're bad if they don't live up to certain social expectations or family expectations. It puts a lot of pressure on children to perform. A lot of performance anxiety, a lot of performance pressure people grow up with. So I think then as we become adults, we tend to keep hidden. We keep ourselves hidden. We keep our feelings inside. We keep our needs, our longings, what we want. We want to be accepted. We want to be understood. We want to be treated with kindness and respect. We don't want to be criticized. We don't want to be shamed. We don't want to be attacked and accused. It's often hard for us to express our authentic feelings. It's hard for us to say when we're sad, when we feel angry. Sometimes anger is easier for people. Often anger is a defense. But underneath, often we feel hurt or sad or embarrassed or shame or fear, afraid. And it's hard for us to be honest about our feelings. You know, so there's something about learning to be really authentic, really honest with ourselves first, to know what we're experiencing. See, this is where focusing can be helpful. Maybe we can talk about later. But often people don't know what they're experiencing, what they're feeling, what they're wanting, and they don't honor it. They feel ashamed of their experience, so they keep it inside. And keeping all these things inside creates distance between us. It's so sad. Creates isolation.
So there is a kind of problem with our culture if we have so much critical communication. Is that one of the reasons that could be maybe that we could be so much distant of our experience?
I think so, Edgardo. I think there's a lot of people, the way people communicate often is with a lot of criticism, a lot of blame. There's actually been research on couples by a man named John Gottman. He researched couples very carefully, and he found that there are 4 things that happen when relationships move toward divorce. 4 things that lead to destructive relationship. And those things that he researched are criticism, we're talking about, contempt, stonewalling, and defensiveness. These things make for difficulty in intimate relationships. So criticism, I think we all understand, being accused, being told you're bad or you're wrong. Contempt is when people are sarcastic, often that's a kind of contempt.
Very much.
You're really looking down on people. And stonewalling is when we don't want to talk about anything. We shut down. We keep everything inside. And defensiveness is when we don't let people really see us. We move away from uncomfortable conversations. We get defensive. We never acknowledge that we were wrong about something. We get defensive about it. We accuse the other person instead of taking responsibility for our part of the problem.
So we have to learn to communicate if we have to be a good person who is going to love to someone.
Yes, yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, we really need to learn to communicate. And often people will say, I have a communication problem in this relationship. But you know, before we can communicate, though, we have to know what we're experiencing. Because communication is only as effective as our awareness of our experience. Otherwise, we don't have much to communicate. Some people communicate criticism, and they think, I'm a good communicator, I just think you're crazy, and it's all your fault. I'm communicating very clearly to you that the problem is all your fault. So that's not real communication, though. See, but if I go deeper, if I become a little more vulnerable and go inside, check inside, it means pausing, it means slowing down, going inside, and so, what do I really feel about this? And it's probably something more vulnerable, like I feel like I'm missing you, like you go off to work so much, and I don't see you enough. And I feel lonely for you. I feel sad that we don't spend as much time together. So to communicate that is more vulnerable. What people usually communicate is, what's wrong with you? You don't care about me. You care more about your work than you care about me. And people get very animated and very angry and attack. And then if I communicate that way, you're going to shut down. You're going to stonewall. You don't want to have a conversation if you're feeling attacked, right? Right. So if it's going to work, if this is going to be an intimate relationship, we both need to take responsibility to create a climate where we can feel more connected. So I need to go inside. What do I really feel? We can use tools like focusing or just any tool to just go inside and, okay, let me see, what am I really feeling? Being honest with myself. Another word people use is emotional honesty. To be really honest, courageously honest with yourself about what you really feel. And then it's a risk, and it takes courage to express what you really feel to the other person, because it means exposing yourself. You're vulnerable, you expose something tender inside yourself. You could get rejected, you could get shamed, you could get humiliated, but you could also get connected. You could also, if you're received well, it could create a lovely connection. And that's what you're longing for, is that connection.
So love have to be with honesty and authenticity?
Yes, that's really key, is honesty and authenticity. And I've written a book about that, about the importance of authenticity in relationships. And that's really key, is to learn to be courageously authentic with yourself first, and then with the person you want to feel connected to. You got a very nice book entitled Authenticity, and heart. The Authentic Heart, the English
heart.
title, The Authentic Heart.
Corazón Auténtico, right, yes. What would you like to tell us about that special book?
The book talks about the basic ingredients for having a loving relationship. We need to be aware of certain things that we're often not taught in our culture. Our culture, our education often prepares us to make a living, but it doesn't educate us much about how to live. How to live, how to be happy, how to live a happy life. So we need to learn certain things. For example, we need to learn to be authentic, and that's important in our life and in our relationships. We need to understand how shame is often an obstacle to being authentic. Why aren't people authentic with each other? Well, it's often because of shame. It's often because people feel too embarrassed to be authentic with each other, to open their hearts. So they shut down. So it's important to be mindful, to be aware. Important to be aware of how shame operates inside of us. That's another thing. And then we need to learn to communicate, to use I statements, to talk from our own experience, not to judge and attack and analyze. Or if we do, just notice that we're doing that, and then to see, well, do I really want to continue doing that? Is that helping my relationship? Probably not. So maybe a good idea to try something different that might work. And that's effective. In the book I call it gentle, heartfelt communication, kind communication. To communicate in a kind, not an attacking kind of a way. And then we need to be aware of our boundaries. We need to be aware of our yes, of our no. When do we want to say yes? When does it feel right to say no? We need to do it in a kind way.
many times we say yes, and we really want to say no.
Exactly. Why is it so hard for us to say no? Isn't that interesting? Why is that so hard?
And why is so hard?
Well, I think a couple of reasons. One, I think we feel shame to say no. We're afraid we'll be rejected. Mm-hmm. Our image is often more important to us than intimacy. Often we try to protect our image. And we're all kind of fragile. We want to be seen in a positive light. So often we're afraid if I express an authentic feeling, maybe I'll be judged and criticized, maybe I'll be rejected. So maybe I don't want to take the risk to be authentic. So I bet it's safer to keep it inside. But are you really safer if you keep everything inside? On one way you're safe, but in another way you stay very disconnected and isolated. So maybe it's safer to actually take a risk and open yourself and share your true self with another person, not be so interested in protecting your image. And that, again, it takes a lot of courage to express how you really feel. But then if you find somebody who receives that, who's also playing by these same rules, who appreciates the value of authenticity, two people willing to be authentic, it's very powerful. You can create a very powerful, intimate connection that way. And that's what we're all longing for. We all have a deep longing in our heart for that kind of intimate connection, but people don't know how to do it. They don't know how to create it. So that's what I'm trying to do in the book, give people some tools and skills for very practical suggestions. How do we create a climate for intimate relationships? Because we can't control it. You know, love is kind of like a soap bubble. You know, if a soap bubble is in the air, if you hold on to it, if you try to grasp it, you destroy it. You just have to really just kind of gently allow it to be, allow it to grow, allow it to have its own life. So if you just allow the love to open, to grow, and the way to create that climate is to be gentle and kind and kindly authentic. Authentic, but also very gentle.
This evening you are going to tell us about the couple therapist. And I would like to know, you were talking about some tips for the communication. Maybe you could tell us 5 or 4 of, I think they are more than that.
Yeah.
About 22,
25 tips.
25 tips.
I probably don't remember all of them.
Please, just 3 or 4.
But sure, absolutely, yeah. Well, one tip is to be willing to take risks to have the courage to take risks in relationships. And to be aware, and to know that if you take a risk and it doesn't go well, you can feel good about yourself for having taken the risk. And even if it doesn't go well, you can feel good for having taken a chance, having taken that risk. So that can feel very good. And another tip is, often when we get to the end of, a lot of people when they get toward the end of their life, they have more regrets about what they didn't do than what they did do.
Yes.
Now, often we regret not having taken certain paths, not having approached somebody who we feel attracted to, not having asked them for their phone number, for example, and not having taken certain risks. So it takes courage to take those risks. But I would encourage people to take intelligent risks, if it feels right, if just something in you maybe is holding back, but sometimes it's helpful to do that. Okay, well, what's another tip? Well, another tip is to really learn what it means to take care of yourself. What does it mean to love yourself? People use that expression all that. We have to love ourselves. Is to acknowledge what you are genuinely feeling, to honor your real feelings. That's an important way to love yourself. I mean, some people will do things like they'll take warm baths, or they'll get a massage, or they'll just take some time to pamper themselves, get a nice haircut or something. And those are all good, but the deeper way to love yourself is to ask yourself, well, what am I really feeling? And can I be with that feeling in a gentle, loving way? Now, can I just, if I'm feeling sad or hurt or angry or embarrassed or afraid, can I just kind of put my arm around that hurting child within me and just be gentle with that child inside me and just give that person, give me a little bit of love, a little bit of understanding, a little bit of compassion.
So self-love.
Yeah, so self-love, taking the risks, being courageous, and being aware of the difference between your primary feelings and your secondary feelings is also helpful. Being aware of secondary feelings or reactions, like often we get angry or we explode, and that's a secondary emotion. In other words, it's not what you're really deeply feeling. the deeper feeling, the primary feeling often is something more vulnerable. I feel like I'm missing you, like I feel lonely for my partner. I feel sad that we don't spend more time together. I feel afraid to tell you how I really feel because if I do, I'm afraid you're going to leave me. You know, do you want to hear my real feelings? Is it safe for me to express my real feelings here then? Can I trust that you won't leave me, that you'll hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. That's very tender. Those are very tender communications, and that creates a climate for intimacy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, from your point of view, what do you think it is? What is happening with the love relationship in the Western society? What do you think is going on? There is something that is changing in a deep way. Here in Chile, we are very much worried about, concerned about that.
Yeah,
the kind of divorces and the many separations. What do you think is happening in the culture?
Yeah, that's a great question, Edgardo, because I think all over the world people are feeling kind of a sense of isolation. I think people feel more and more pressure to make a living. There's a lot of stress in people's lives. They want to be successful, they want to make a living, they want to support their family. There's a lot of pressure to succeed, to make enough money. So there's that's one level of social pressure, financial pressure people feel. But I think deeper is people aren't given the skills and the tools that they need to have a chance at having a good, healthy, intimate relationship. You know, we're not taught, I think it's slowly changing, but in most education systems, there's no education about feelings. You know, the emphasis is on intellectual intelligence, and there's not an awareness of the importance of emotional intelligence. So this is changing a little bit with Dan Goleman, who's a Harvard teaches at Harvard, wrote a book on emotional intelligence. And this is very important that we educate our children, educate ourselves to be more emotionally intelligent, which means being more aware, being more mindful of our feelings and learning how to communicate our feelings in an effective way. You know, and the reason again why people have difficulty in intimate relationships is they try to control each other. Do people make accusations in Chile like they do in America? Often when people come and work with me as a couples therapist, people often say, you know, he's trying to control me or she's trying to control me.
Yes.
And that's a common accusation, right?
Very common.
And nobody wants to feel controlled, right? We want to feel free to be ourselves. So what's the alternative? Well, the alternative, instead of trying to control another person, is, again, this is a very simple formula. It's not easy, but it's a simple formula. You go inside, you pause, you take some time, take a deep breath before you say anything. Take a deep breath, go inside, notice how you feel in your body. And this is where approaches like humanistic approaches like focusing can be very helpful for people to learn. You take a breath, you go inside, you ask yourself, well, what am I really feeling? What's really happening? And you might know, it takes a little time for something to come. So if I just close my eyes right now, go inside, you know, I notice a little energy in my stomach, like there's a jumpiness inside, and it's kind of an excitement too, and kind of a wondering, are people understanding what I'm saying? You know, some part of me is a little nervous that maybe I'm not being clear, maybe I'm not expressing myself clearly. This is such an important topic, and will I express myself clearly and well for people to understand? So a little agitation connected to that. There's some meaning behind the agitation. And if people in a relationship go inside, they might notice something like, you know, there's a heaviness in my chest, a heaviness in my heart. I'm missing the feeling of connection with you. And you know, at the beginning when we met each other, I was so excited. I had so much hope that we would connect, and then something happened. I don't know what happened, and I feel scared. I feel worried that we're not going to connect in a deeper way. But whatever it is for people, to go inside and to pause, go inside, get connected to what I'm really feeling and what the feeling is about, and then bring that forward and show that. See, that's your best chance at breaking through the depression that people feel, the isolation, the disconnection. That's people's best chance at having a more fulfilling relationship and a more fulfilling life.
Why does coming up this new practice of language of feeling? Do you think that is new?
Is the language of feeling new? It's relatively new from the time, you know, one of my favorite writers is Carl Rogers in the humanistic psychology tradition. So maybe
1960.
In the 60s this began to came out, and then Eugene Genlin in the 70s did his research on focusing, and his research showed that when people were connected to their bodily felt experience, their bodily felt sense, then those were the clients who made the most progress in psychotherapy. It's very interesting. The clients who made the most progress were the ones who weren't so articulate, they weren't in their heads analyzing their problem. They were slowing down, they were getting connected to this more subtle, more vulnerable feeling inside. They were getting connected to that, and then they were talking to the therapist from that place. So they were exploring their life issues from that deeper, vulnerable place. And then suddenly they felt something shift, something would release, something would open up. Even if they're not pleasant feelings, even if it was painful feelings, just the fact that they're being honest with themselves, they're being real, they're being authentic, they're expressing these deeper feelings. It feels good to connect with what's real, even if the feeling is painful or difficult. That's a very important principle, that to connect with what's real, to honor that, to acknowledge that. Something about being congruent with yourself, honest with yourself, feels good. And it's very empowering. And so to know what you're feeling and then to express that to somebody who you want to have a close relationship with is very empowering, very fulfilling. And it takes another person willing to receive that. So I would encourage people to find people, even if it's not a partner, but maybe a friend who you can talk to openly about your feelings. There's research on this too, in fact, that when people talk about their feelings to each other, it's actually good for your immune system. There's good research on this. It's good for your physical health. To be connected to your true feelings and to express them. The research is showing that this helps people feel better physically. It helps with your immune system. It helps the immune system to strengthen.
I see.
So it's collaboration from science, that it's to open your heart and to share is healthy physically, emotionally, spiritually, very healthy.
Do you think that people is afraid to love?
I think people are afraid to open their hearts, which is what it takes to love. Yes, afraid to open their hearts, say how they really feel. And
that has to be with commitment?
I think it has to do with engagement. People are afraid of engaging with each other. They're afraid of what might happen if they open their hearts, and then, am I going to have a safe, soft landing? Often we think of people with courage, or the people who are rock climbers, or people in sports have courage, or people who do high wire acts, acrobatics. But I think the deeper courage is to be a lover. It takes a tremendous amount of courage to really show what you're really experiencing.
Do you think we must change our practice in education from the beginning? Do you think it had to be with that?
I think it would be great, if educators realize that we need to start with the children, and instead of just teaching the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic, we call it the 3 R's in America, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Okay. But we call it arithmetic.
Okay.
If we add relationships, that could be the 4th R. How do we have healthy relationships? And if we could begin to teach children, for example, I saw a video recently of a school system in Japan where if one of the children's relative died or parent died, all the children would talk about. The person would talk about their feelings, and everybody would gather around and listen to their feelings. And they would have classes sometimes just around feelings and hearing each other's feelings. And everyone felt more connected. They would feel good. And they would leave, not feeling so much grief, so much sadness, because they had a place to talk about it. So just to be able to talk about our feelings, it's very powerful. So I think, sure, bring it into the school systems, and then people need to also pursue it by reading books and maybe attending workshops and practicing it and getting support, maybe seeing a therapist. Not have shame around acknowledging that we all need help sometimes. We all need guidance, and therapy can also be a great place to get some help and some guidance.
We got a great philosopher here in Chile that named Francisco Varela, and he said that at the school, boys and girls should learn empathy, like another course, like arithmetic.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
I think that's an excellent idea, Edgardo. Yes, to teach empathy, to teach listening skills. You know, someone once said that the most precious gift we can give another person is to listen.
Oh, I see.
Really listen, not judge them, not give them advice. And men especially like to give advice. They want to feel like they're smart, and they're trying to control it, control the situation. But sometimes advice is helpful if you're asking for advice, seeking advice. It can be helpful to get advice. But what people really want is to be understood, you see, because once we're understood, we don't feel as isolated. You know, the suffering we all feel is mostly the suffering of feeling isolated, feeling alone. And if we talk about our feelings, talk about what's really happening for us, and someone just listens, someone has empathy for our feelings, it makes us feel so much better. I mean, as people are listening, maybe they can think of a time where somebody really listened to them without judging them, and how good that felt. And that's a gift we can also give other people. That's a great gift we can give others, is to just listen and maybe reflect back their feelings. This is something that's also done in focusing. When you're working with somebody, you listen to their feelings, you reflect back what you're hearing. Oh, that must feel so sad, or I can really understand how sad that must feel for you. And thank you for sharing that with me. I appreciate you trusting me enough to let me know how sad you're feeling. That feels good. I feel more connected to you now. I can understand you better now, and that makes me feel more connected with you, to hear your feelings. Thank you so much for sharing that. So yes, to listen, to develop empathy, and sort of like a body empathy, like a deep empathy with another person. And that means staying gently within yourself, getting out of your head, taking a deep breath, just kind of dropping down, taking the elevator down into your body, like to feel yourself in here, and to breathe in here and relax and open up. And that's where we really can hear. We hear from our bellies. You know, we hear from our heart, not from our head.
Also, Varela said that our intelligence or our brain is not in our head, but in our body. What do you think of that?
I love that. Yeah. Yeah, the intelligence, there's like a heart brain.
Yes.
The heart's very wise.
Or do you think that?
I think that very much. Yes, the heart is very wise. The body is very wise.
Could you tell us about that, about the wiseness of our body?
Well, it's interesting because Eugene Gendlin, he's a psychologist and a philosopher, did this important research at the University of Chicago. And he found that, again, when the clients were progressing in therapy, they were connected to their body, they were connected to their heart, they were connected to their feelings in their body, not just in their heads. So it's very powerful. And I'm thinking of a poem by William Butler Yeats. You know this American poet, William Butler Yeats?
Yes.
He said, "Guard me from the thoughts men think in the mind alone. The man who sings a lasting song thinks in the marrow bone." Guard me from the thoughts men think in the mind alone. The man who sings a lasting song thinks in the marrow bone. Thinks, we need to think in our bones, in our body. It's an interesting, different way to look at it.
Yes. So do you think that this is going to, is happening something like a revolution in this kind of the thinking?
Yeah, I think there has been and there's happening, I think a slow revolution is happening where we're moving more toward the importance of experiential understanding, not just intellectual understanding. You know, some of the traditional therapies from long ago, from Freud, a lot of it is analytical. We try to understand ourselves in the mind. And that has value. It's good to use our mind and understand ourselves, but we also need experiential understanding to know our feelings. What's happening in our body, what's happening in our being. And it's sometimes it sounds so mystical to people sometimes, but it's really quite simple. And Gendlin often says he didn't invent focusing, he just observed it. Observed it in the people that were progressing in therapy. These were people who were doing this quite naturally. They were just naturally slowing down, connecting with their feelings. So all Gendlin did is he developed some steps so other people can learn this process, to make it more easy for others to learn it. But it's a very natural, very organic process. People need to not try too hard. You know, people say, well, how do I know what I'm feeling? How do I know? How do I get in touch with this? You know, don't try too hard. Just relax, take a breath. You already know, some part of you already knows what you're feeling. Some part of you already knows what you're experiencing. If you just relax, take a deep breath, your body knows. There's a wisdom in your body that knows what's happening. If you just slow down and trust it, begin to trust the natural intelligence in your body, in your being. And it will tell you, it will gradually tell you. Maybe an image will come or some words will come that express how it's feeling in there. So just give it some time, and maybe you won't succeed at it all the time, that's fine. Don't be afraid you're going to fail. Just take some risk. Experiment. Life is all about experimenting.
John, you have been teaching also focusing on couple relationship in China.
Oh, I just taught a workshop in China, yes.
How is the Chinese people prepared for this?
Well, it's interesting. I find people all over the world are longing for ways to connect with each other. It's an issue that I've seen throughout the world. So yes, people are longing for more information. How do I have a healthy, intimate relationship? And of course, there are differences in different cultures, but we have more in common than we have differences. I see this again and again when I travel to different countries, that we have so much more in common. The longing for human connection is universal. We all want to be understood. We all want to be respected. We want people to like us. We want love. We want intimacy. We all want that. Men want that. Women want that. People in China want that. People in America want that. People want to be happy. That's basically what we're longing for, is to be happy. So if we can help each other, cooperate, create a world where our needs can be met and we all have the opportunity to move toward happiness, then it'll be a much more beautiful world. Beautiful communities, beautiful world could develop. I mean, I know it sounds very idealistic and it's going to take a long time, but I think gradually it's happening where people are realizing that we have something in common. Let's work with what we have in common, not emphasize our differences so much.
Yes, that's one of the problems of our international relationship. Being in Chile, this is your second time you have been in Chile. How, just talking about languages, feeling, what are your feelings about Chile and about this visit?
Yeah, I feel happy when I'm in Chile. I love being here. The people are many people I met are so kind and friendly and open, and people are more affectionate here than in my society. I really like that. People kiss each other more and hug each other more. There's more
touching.
More touching, yeah. There's more affection, more connection. So I love that about the culture here.
Do you think that is a little different from your country?
Yeah, but the people in my country are a little more reserved.
That comes maybe from the English
Yeah, maybe from
culture?
the English, yeah, from
English
European culture is more reserved, more
distant.
Yeah, there was actually some research, I can't quote it exactly, but there was research in how when a couple are sitting together, how often they touch each other during a half-hour conversation. And I think in Latin American cultures, maybe something like 30 times on average, they would touch each other. I forget the exact number.
Okay.
In America, I think it was twice.
Twice a day?
They would touch each other. Twice in 30 minutes when they're having a conversation.
30 minutes.
And in England, I think it was like once or 0 times, I think.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
It's interesting. But yeah, I love the culture here.
Mm-hmm. So now you are going to Argentina. What are you going to do there?
Yeah, there's the International Focusing Conference. Each year the Focusing Institute and the Focusing people have a conference in some interesting part of the world. Last year I was in California, this year it's in Argentina. So I'll be speaking about how to use focusing in couples therapy, because I work as a couples therapist. I try to help couples. So this will be helping teach people. I think therapists will come and to teach people how to help other people in couples therapy to connect better.
Do you have a lot of work with couples in America?
I work with a lot of couples.
In the United States?
Yeah. And in America, and especially some parts like San Francisco where I am, there's less and less of a stigma for people to seek therapy. And I'd like to see that spread throughout the world. Like, why should it be embarrassing to ask for help? We all need help with we need help with our taxes. Why can't we ask for help with our relationships? We need help with our business sometimes, with other parts of our life. And often we need help with our relationships. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. So I love working with couples. It's very fulfilling when both people are really open, they want to grow, they want to connect more, they're open to trying something new and different, and often very challenging because people get very stuck in their ways, stuck in their judgments about each other. So it's challenging work, but it's very fulfilling when it goes well.
Looking back at your life, can you remember how did you get involved with focusing and couples therapy?
Yeah, well, I guess a lot of it's my own search for my own personal growth, interested in what it takes for me to grow as a person and what would help me to have more fulfilling relationships. So I've been very open to wanting to understand more about psychology and human nature and what do we need, how do we move forward in our life to be happy. Just like everyone else, I've been very interested in that. How do we live a fulfilling life? And I was fortunate to meet Jen Litt at a conference in 1977, I think it was. And he led me through a focusing session.
Oh, he did?
He did, yeah, during the lunch break. He led me through focusing. We were both presenting workshops at this conference.
Oh, you were working, just preparing your workshop?
Yeah, we were both leading workshops at different times. And so we met during lunch, and he told me about focusing and led me through the session, and I thought it was very interesting. And then after that, I met some other people who were teaching focusing, and I began to be trained in focusing. So that's one of my main tools now that I use as a psychotherapist.
I see.
Yeah.
So that's the way you met Jean Gentlin. Did you have the chance to meet Carl Rogers?
No, I never had a chance, unfortunately, to meet Carl Rogers. Yeah, he was a beautiful man.
What of the great authors you have got the chance to know personally, maybe from the humanistic?
Yeah. What authors do I get to know? Well, I did a workshop once with Virginia Satir. I thought she was very helpful. She's one of the founders of marriage and family therapy.
Virginia
Satir, yes. And Peter Campbell and Ed McMahon, they're some of the leaders too in humanistic psychology. They have more of a spiritual orientation. They're actually Catholic priests with Ph.D.s in psychology. And they've written books on focusing. They've written a lot of books. Peter Campbell and Ed McMahon. So there's some of my main teachers.
Campbell?
Peter Campbell, yes. Ed McMahon. They've written books on focusing and on spirituality.
That's nice.
So those are two of my main teachers who I've had a chance to meet and get to know a little bit. Yeah, in fact, I introduced Peter at the last conference at Asilomar. He gave a talk to the entire group at the conference there.
So, what could be your message for the young people here in Chile talking about love?
Yeah, well, one thing I would say is sometimes when people have bad experiences with love, often they give up. So what I like to say is don't give up on love, because love never gives up on you. Love is like an energy, it's a power in the universe. It speaks through you, it comes through you. It's something you need to learn how to live in harmony with something in life in order to find love, to create healthy love. So don't give up on it, just keep learning and growing and learn from your mistakes and be willing to make a lot of mistakes. Be willing to make mistakes and learn from your mistakes, learn from your experience. You know, it's one thing to make a mistake, it's another thing if you don't learn anything from it. And the shame is not in making a mistake, the shame is in not learning anything from the mistake.
Oh,
so
I see.
I
see.
So, you know, talk to people, talk to friends, talk to a therapist, go to be introspective, understand what happened in a relationship that didn't work, and see, okay, what is it going to take next time? I maybe need to be a little more aware, a little more conscious.
So, consciousness and learning.
Yeah, be mindful, be gentle, be very gentle with yourself. Be very forgiving of your mistakes, very forgiving of yourself.
So we are not so much gentle with ourselves.
No, we're very harsh and very hard on ourselves very often. We need to be much more gentle with ourselves and be gentle with others and make it easy for people to approach you. You know, I would tell young people, because, you know, we all want to be loved and have relationships. You can make it difficult for someone to approach you, or you can make it easier for somebody to approach you. You know, you can smile, you can be open, you can have nice conversation. You know, make another person relaxed in your presence, and then they can approach you more, maybe ask for your phone number, and you can get together.
And be happy, and learn,
get together, and learn together, grow together, learn what it takes to have a relationship. Yeah, it's an exciting journey.
Maybe the last question, what is the difference from the romantic love to this kind of love that you are talking about?
Right, yeah, because in the book, and Corazón, Auténtico, I talk about the difference between what I call young love and mature love. In young love, we have a lot of expectations. We think people should read our mind. We think people should know what we feel and what we want without having to express it. So in more mature love, we realize we have to take responsibility for expressing our feelings, express what we want. You know, if you want more affection, want more hugs, want more time together, we need to express that. So, yeah, that's just one small difference. Yeah, between the young love and the mature love is we need to take more responsibility for our side of the relationship, to create a climate, do our part to create a climate where the love can grow.
Maybe because we are in Chile, I would like to ask you something. If you could explain that verse of Pablo Neruda, that is so short love and it is too large to forget.
Yes, yeah, love is so short and forgetting is so long, I think is the English translation.
Right, yes.
Yeah, because we can love and it's so beautiful, and even if it's a short time, it's so beautiful, it stays with us. And when we lose that love, it can take a long time to heal, to grieve, to feel the loss of that love. And we need to sometimes give ourselves time to heal and to grieve.
But maybe now, because we have that concept of the felt sense, there we could work on that.
Yeah, exactly. We can use these tools to heal. And we don't have to be stopped by failures in love. We can just see it as a bump in the road and move forward.
Well, thank you so much, John, for being with us in this conversation that has been so nice and allowed me to grow a little bit more.
My pleasure. So it was fun to do this with you.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.